This young man literally and mysteriously vanished without a trace just steps from his home at a snowy ski resort in Canada where he lived and worked, leaving such a baffling case behind him as the family desperately wonders what happened and where he could be, but yet there still aren't answers. Not only did his disappearance stump investigators, but expert dogs as well. 5 years later, the mystery remains unsolved with little clues, and the question of where this young man or his body could be continues to torment those who know and love him. His family has never given up hope. I'm Linda with It's a Crime, so now let's get into it. 20-year-old Ryan Shtuka was born in a little town called Beaumont, Alberta, Canada on March 17, 1997. His parents, Heather and Scott Shtuka, also reside there and have 2 daughters. After leaving a house party in Sun Peaks Resort, British Columbia, in the early hours of Saturday, February 17, 2018, and just a month shy of Ryan's 21st birthday, he never returned home. Sun Peaks Resort is an alpine ski resort located in Sun Peaks, BC, Canada, and is 56 kilometers or 35 miles northeast from the city of Kamloops. And Kamloops has a population of just under 100,000 people. In 2016, the population of Sun Peaks was 616. That was 2 years before Ryan's disappearance, and has since doubled to just over 1,400 in 2021. And the resort has a total of 13 lifts with a capacity of over 13,000 riders per hour. There are 139 runs at Sun Peaks and 40 kilometers or 25 miles of cross-country trails. Sun Peaks averages 2,000 hours of sun a year and receives an average of 18 feet of snow per year. And 20-year-old Ryan is described as 6 feet tall, 180 pounds with blonde hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing dark jeans, a gray and white shirt, a blue coat, and a burgundy ball cap. And there is a $25,000 reward now, I believe, for the info leading to the location of Ryan. It went up from $15,000. Now, let's get into the timeline, and if we rewind just a little bit, on December 1st of 2017, just 2.5 months before Ryan's disappearance, Ryan and his friend traveled a 9-hour drive from Beaumont, Alberta to Sun Peaks. He and his friend had plans to work and snowboard during the winter season. And over the next few months, Ryan worked as a lift operator, also known as a lifty, and lived with roommates right there in Sun Peaks. On the map, the area where Ryan lived was just in the southwest corner of that ski hill. Fast forward to February, 2 months later, on February 16th, 2018, Ryan finished work as normal and returned to his shared home. After a shower and a change of clothes, Ryan and his roommates went to the local Massa's Bar and Grill for a drink, then headed to a place called Bottoms, which is just a 1-minute walk away, for a silent disco party. Now, a silent disco party is kind of cool. You wear headphones and there's a DJ and you listen to the music through these headphones. And when you take them off, it's silent. So some parties have a few DJs and you can tune in to different types of music depending on your preference, and people will have these parties as a solution to excessive noise and ease up on the neighbors as well, who may complain. And the parties can go obviously longer. I've also seen it where it can cater to those who have sensitivities to sounds, and so they can control it. Now, one of Ryan's roommates, Chris Feeney, who was 31 years old at the time of his interview, recalled the night and said it went by quickly. He said, "It felt like 2 Backstreet Boys songs and the night was over. None of us were ready to go home and we heard about a house party that may be going." Later in the night, they left the pub together and went to a house party, and that was just a few minutes away from their shared residence. Chris explained the atmosphere, saying, quote, "Most of the people there were regulars or lifties that I knew." He said it was a really pretty mellow gathering rather than a party. That night, 20 centimeters or 8 inches of snow had fallen through the night, and temperatures dropped down to around minus 20 Celsius. It is minus 4 Fahrenheit. Now, at roughly 2:10 a.m. on the morning of February 17th, Ryan was reportedly seen leaving the house party located in Burfield Drive, Snow Peaks, according to the partygoers. And one of his friends/roommates left that party first alone to walk home, leaving Ryan and the rest of the friends and roommates at the party. 2 other roommates and a friend told Ryan they were leaving shortly after that. When Ryan's roommates decided to leave the party, they allegedly saw Ryan stand up and put on his shoes and coat, and they then left the residence believing that Ryan was right behind them. They didn't leave him alone though. There were still reportedly 4 other friends that stayed behind. Now, when the roommates eventually turned around, they said Ryan was not behind them. Initially, they said that they didn't think anything of it or if anything bad had happened to him. They thought maybe he was just tying his shoes or decided to stay at the party longer. And Chris Feeney wasn't immediately concerned for Ryan. Later that morning, he headed to work as normal, only then realizing Ryan hadn't turned up to work. He and Ryan's other friends assumed that he might have gone home with a girl maybe, or decided to crash on someone's couch. And it wasn't until Ryan completely missed his shift and failed to return home that his friends feared for his safety. And in an effort to locate him, they made a post in a local Facebook group asking if anyone had seen him. At around 9 p.m., the friends called a hospital and were then advised to call the police. Chris Feeney said, "By 1 a.m., we were all very scared." He continued saying, "We felt so helpless sitting in the house. None of us really slept that night, knowing the next day was going to be a full search day with search and rescue, police, volunteers, helicopters, and dogs." And his roommates reported him missing to the Kamloops Royal Canadian Mounted Police, also known as the RCMP. Kamloops is about a 45-minute drive away from Sun Peaks, and in this map, you can see how close the party was to where Ryan was living. And in a minute, I'll show you more of the terrain and the walk and just how overwhelming the area really is. Following the missing persons report, an investigation into Ryan's disappearance was launched, and authorities searched in the area where Ryan went missing in extensively. They used canine units, drones, volunteer groups, snowmobiles, and helicopters, but no trace of Ryan was found, not even sent. And as part of their investigation, authorities then monitored Ryan's phone records, his social media, and bank accounts. No activity was found on any of these after Ryan went missing. And 2 officers initially responded following his disappearance, and hundreds of hours have been spent on the search and the investigation. The corporal at the time of the Kamloops RCMP detachment said, quote, "I think we interviewed just about everybody in that community. We've taken that information from them and we've used it." In their efforts, it was said 300 tips have been followed up on, and Kamloops resident Jim Reed was one of those who gave a tip to the authorities. He was staying in the Sun Peaks area at the time Ryan was missing, roughly a 20-minute walk from Burfield Drive where the house party took place. And he reported that he had been woken up in the early hours of the morning to a person yelling. He stated it very much sounded like, "Get in the car, get in the car." Now, 2 other tips included a possible sighting of Ryan on a close by road called Fairways Drive at 1:55 a.m. and the other involving an unknown male entering a home reportedly looking for a party. Unfortunately, though, these tips did not lead to anything significant. However, one of the interesting pieces of information that I found especially interesting is the extra potential sighting at 1:55 a.m. along with the person yelling about getting into the car. But I haven't found yet what time that was about the person yelling. If you happen to know that, you please leave a comment under this video to let me know. And while we're at it, please leave some green hearts for Ryan. Before we dive back into today's case, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Warby Parker. I've been using AccuView Oasis daily lenses for a while now, and they've been a game changer for me. They're comfortable, they're convenient, and perfect for my daily needs. I used to use contacts that made my eyes really dry, and these ones help a lot. And the best part, you can get them easily through Warby Parker. Warby Parker offers everything you need in one-stop shop: designer quality glasses with free adjustments for life, contact lenses, eye exams, and vision tests at a price that won't break the bank. And whether you meet them online or in their stores or even in your home, they make vision care simple and accessible. And they carry a wide variety variety of contact lenses from top brands, including the full AccuView range. Plus, if you need a prescription, Warby Parker offers comprehensive eye exams at many of their locations, and they even offer free shipping and returns on all contact orders, making it super convenient. And something notable, they have a program called Buy a Pair, Give a Pair, where for every pair of glasses sold, a pair is given to someone in need. And as of 2023, over 15 million pairs have been distributed. You're going to love Warby Parker. Head over to warbyparker.com/itsAcrime to save 20% on your first order of contacts, plus get free shipping. That's warbyparker.com/itsAcrime. Now, let's get back to the case. Now, Ryan's mom, Heather, said that the potential 1:55 a.m. sighting was checked out, but apparently it was later dismissed because it didn't link up with the timeline that the people at the party gave. And then later in the investigation, it was looked at further. Now, in news reports, it also said that one of Ryan's roommates received a text at a certain time, which points to a potential timeline shift where this roommate could have actually have left the party at around 1:30 a.m. as opposed to 2:10, shifting that timeline. And if we look at the map, we'll see here's the area where the party was, and here is Fairways Drive. And depending on where that potential sighting was on that road, it could line up with that new 1:30 a.m. time that was figured out with that text from one of the roommates. And that 1:55 a.m. would also line up with 1:30, as it's that 20-something minute walk. And if so, Heather said it could have been Ryan potentially heading to the village to maybe grab a bite to eat before it closes at 2 a.m. But unfortunately, surveillance cameras in the area didn't work, and she encouraged people to check their surveillance cameras for any time after 1 a.m. So the question is, was that in fact Ryan walking along that road? Was he going to eat some food or trying to get it before it closed, and or was he trying to meet up with somebody? But the corporal of the RCMP said there's no indication of foul play in Ryan's disappearance. It's perplexing, he said, and he said there isn't anything there to suggest foul play. We're hoping somebody knows something and one day will come forward or something will come up. And they have no information or theory on what happened to Ryan, although there's been speculation by the public, and nothing indicates Ryan was involved in any sort of criminal activity. And in a moment, I'll show you the clips of the amount of snow that was there at the time, and it'll blow your mind just how much there is. And Ryan's mom, Heather Shtuka, last saw her son on December 1st, 2017. She hugged and kissed him goodbye before he drove the long journey from Beaumont, Alberta to Sun Peaks. And after his arrival, they kept in regular contact via text and calls to her and Ryan's dad, Scott. And in one of these phone calls with his dad, Ryan excitedly told him about snowboarding, saying, "Dad, I've been snowboarding 36 days straight." And Heather believes he was enjoying his time in Sun Peaks. She explained, "As someone who loves him, I want to support him. Looking back now, I could have said, don't go. It's a big step. It's far away. Maybe I could have kept him from going out. He could have passed away 2 weeks later in a car accident. Life happens regardless. I will never in my entire life regret that." Never regret that. I mean, a lot of us have children. We know what it's like to worry like crazy, even when they just step out the front door. But it seemed to be that he had an excellent time there. Ryan's friend Cooper said he often is reminded of Ryan's disappearance when he's out with friends. He said, "I didn't actually realize just how much that has been impacting me. I'm so much more attentive to everything, and I'm just looking out for my friends at all times when we go out and stuff. I'm always walking them home." And in an interview with Ryan's mom, Heather heartbreakingly said, "I keep thinking, if he's no longer here, would I not feel that? But I don't. I wish I knew. I wish I knew." I read Heather's blog on Find Ryan Shtuka, his website, and I'll have the links below. And in one entry, she talked about the dogs in the search. And she said, "The dogs did not find my son today. And now I have to uncurl myself from this dark, dark place and find the strength to do this again tomorrow. Insane. The truth is, we hold the RCMP accountable for investigating our son's disappearance, and they have consistently delivered." Heather also talked about Ryan and his love for hanging out with his dad. He loved everything hockey, and every year around November was hunting season. He'd go with his dad. And a quote Heather later said, she addressed to Ryan and said, "I think of hunting especially now, baby boy, because I want you to remember that your dad has the patience and the skill to move every inch of this snow to find you. I have to show you that amount of snow that was there that week. It's beyond what you would envision to be. But first, let's just get into the oddities." After nearly 3 weeks of extensive searching, the Canadian Search and Disaster Dogs Association deployed 5 specially trained dogs to scour that wooded and snowy area where Ryan vanished. And the not-for-profit organization stated, quote, "We know that if he's out in the elements, it's recovery and recovery only." Sylvie Montier, the Canadian Search and Disaster Dogs team leader, said they have a sense of smell which is really, really strong. By air scenting, it allows them to isolate other scents, which is better in this case. And the specialist dogs are trained to find human scent in wilderness, rubble, and water areas. Their sense of smell, which is 1,000,000 times stronger than humans, are very effective at locating human scent, whether they are alive or deceased. And Sylvie said they will catch a scent from far enough, and it's very important for a situation like this where the snow is so deep the dog can't go everywhere, so he has to be able to get the scent from far enough so that he can go into the deep snow only where it's needed. And yet, there was no scent of Ryan. And Ryan's mother commented on the search effort by saying, "It makes me anxious. It's a hateful word to say hopeful. I'm hoping that you find my son. But when I hope that, I also know that you're not really finding him. You're finding it's a recovery mission, and that's a hard thing to wrap your mind around." She continued on saying, "Scott and I will put our lives on hold, even if it's just for a little bit of it, to focus on Ryan, because if it is recovery, there won't be any more time with him. That'll be for us. So we can do that to honor our son and spend it with him, and we won't leave until there's not one drop of snow on this ground, and we can say for sure that he's not here." Heather and Scott go back and forth from their home in Beaumont to Sun Peaks, from my understanding, several times a year in search for their son. Now, this last April, there were 2 anonymous tips that came in from one person about Ryan's case to a missing persons group called Please Bring Me Home. And this group posted on Facebook to whoever contacted the group in April to contact them again. They said if this was you, to please reach out so we can follow up with you. And I do wonder what that was about. I sure hope it will obviously lead to Ryan's whereabouts, or maybe those who do watch these videos will remember something and will call in and lead to his whereabouts in some way, because no tip is too little. In May, just a few months ago here in 2024, it was reported that there was an influx of tips and that there were consistencies or a theme to them. And in the days after Ryan was reported missing, Mounties and 22 members of Kamloops Search and Rescue searched for Ryan and the dogs, snowmobiles, drones with infrared cameras, helicopters, and 74 volunteers also searched. Now take a look at the snow here in these clips. Heather did a video just a week after Ryan went missing, and not just any video, but the actual walk Ryan would have made if it was from the party house to his home. And for Heather, it took 16 minutes in the snow, and you can see the crazy amount that there's there and just how vast this area is. And it's literally a needle in a haystack. So many places, and where do you even begin? Also, the snow kept falling, so any trace of Ryan or steps that he made could or would have been erased by the snowfall. Now, there's something really very peculiar and interesting about the area and region that Ryan disappeared from. For decades, researchers have noticed that people are vanishing at an abnormal frequency in that area. It's dubbed the BC Triangle, or the British Columbia Triangle, also the Kamloops Triangle, which is located in this interior plateau of southern British Columbia. And every disappearance in the BC Triangle took place in this highlighted area. Now, American author and former officer David Pilates discovered the triangle in 2019, and he published his findings in a series of 10 books and 2 documentaries called Missing 411, 411 being a term commonly used for details and information, and is also a reference to the Canadian number for directory assistance. And during this search, Pilates noted that many of the missing person cases shared characteristics he called profile points. And profile point 1 is the inability of tracking dogs to follow a scent in the area the missing person vanished from. In his books, Paulides explained, in nearly 99% of the cases I've documented, bloodhounds brought to the point where the victim was last seen cannot find a scent, aren't interested in tracking, or seem oblivious to the smell. And he said, as a former member of a law enforcement SWAT team that had the canine unit attached to our division, I can guarantee that these dogs love their job and relish tracking people. This is one of the most prevalent profile points in the cases we have identified. Profile point number 2 relates to inclement weather, including blizzards, fog, rain, snow, hail, dust storms, and freezing cold or hot temperatures. And the weather will often turn suddenly and without warning after the victim's disappearance, hindering search and rescue efforts. Now, the third profile point is where the missing person's body is found in an area previously searched. Paulides explained that sometimes the location of the recovery has been searched dozens of times. He said in one instance, the searchers had taken the same trail hundreds of times over the week hiking to where they believed the victim was located, and on one of the days of the search, a tree had fallen across the path and the young victim was found lying on it. Nobody could explain this perplexing scenario. And in Ryan's case, point 1, the tracking dogs, check. And number 2, with the weather, check. Number 3, well, obviously hasn't been found yet. There are other profile points as well, like missing clothes or shoes in these types of cases, disappearances at twilight, cases where the missing person may have suffered from an illness or disability, and disappearances where the victim is rescued and cannot recall information about and leading up to their disappearance. Also, the missing persons being found near water, including creeks, rivers, ponds, and lakes, or in areas with large amounts of granite or large boulders, or being found in swamps and bogs. People vanish immediately after others lose sight of them, and the unexplainable malfunctioning of compasses and other equipment. Now, from these profile points, we can see that there are a few in relation to Ryan's disappearance. They match a little bit. Paulides said that there is no other province in Canada that comes close to the number of missing people matching the profile points as British Columbia, and he says specifically 40% of the Canadian missing persons cases, of which Paulides wrote occurred in supernatural BC, which is what we call BC. Focusing on that Kamloops BC triangle and the time frame when Ryan went missing, in 2017 to 2020, there were several men that disappeared and they have never been found. On the 17th of November 2019, 27-year-old Marshall Owasa disappeared. Now, I did a previous video on him a few years ago. He was last seen in Lethbridge, Alberta by his family, and he was on his way to a storage locker and told his family he was going to go back to Calgary where he was living, which is only a couple hours from Lethbridge. He made it to the storage locker within Lethbridge and waited outside as he was locked out of it. He didn't realize that they locked it during the night. He finally gained access in the early hours, and his movements after that are not known. Hikers found his burnt-out pickup truck on a remote Forest Service road 12 hours away in British Columbia. And the storage locker logs showed that he did access the storage locker on the 17th and stayed there for 2 hours before leaving the facility, but the family couldn't review surveillance footage because it had been recorded over by the time the truck was found. And Lethbridge police considered this at first that it was suspicious, but noted that they had found evidence that Marshall wasn't attending his post-secondary classes and was experiencing stress in his life. And he's still missing to this day. But there's so many oddities to this case, and even though Marshall's truck was found burned out 12 hours away, the steering column was also gone from that truck and no sign of Marshall. And yet, the authorities wouldn't deem it as suspicious or a criminal activity. Not one camera shows Marshall's truck or Marshall in a 12-hour drive. He would have had to have gassed up at some point, yet there's nothing. And I'll have that video at the end of this one or below. I'll put the link. Now, number 2, there's a man named Ben Tyner who is 32 years old and vanished from the Merritt area after riding his horse into the hills looking for cattle, it was said. Now, 2 days later, his horse was found alone and fully saddled on a Forest Service road northwest of Merritt. He was last seen at 2 p.m. on January 26th of 2019, and after an extensive search, he still has not been found either. Now, number 3 is a gentleman named Luke Neville, who is 48 years old at the time and was last seen in Spence's Bridge on October 9th, 2017. And the next day, his burnt-out van was found on the Sackham Forest Service Road 20 kilometers from his home, or approximately 12 miles. Now, authorities considered his disappearance suspicious. Sadly, he also has never been found. And these are just a few of these missing persons cases attributed to this Kamloops British Columbia triangle, with Ryan's case being one of many. A spokesman for the RCMP said that all these cases are still open, but said that the only thing noted to be in common is that the missing persons or victims are male and their geographic location. However, I noted some other similarities a few years ago when I was looking into Marshall's case, and we'll hopefully do a future video on the case. Let me know if you're interested below. Also, leave a few more hearts, please, for Ryan. Now, there have been many theories surrounding Ryan's disappearance. Initially, search and rescue teams felt that Ryan had maybe fallen into a gully that was then covered in heavy snow. But when the snow melted after winter, Ryan was not found. And Jean Strong, who's the editor for the Sun Peaks Independent News, said she has heard so many theories, from abduction to sex trafficking to being involved in the drug trade to aliens to an animal attack. Any other wild theory you can think of, she says, has come up online. A retired RCMP investigator, Brian Smith, traveled from Alberta to help in the search after a request from Ryan's family. He believed that Ryan had wandered into the deep snow and got lost. His mind then changed, though, following an interview with one of Ryan's friends. He explained, quote, "The friend seemed to be very nervous and very afraid for himself, which was unusual to me. He said, my gut told me that this was most likely a homicide, not just a missing person." And Smith said that he shared his findings with the RCMP. But Ryan's roommate, Chris Feeney, soon came under fire from the public. 2 weeks after his disappearance, Feeney traveled to Banff with a friend for a pre-planned trip. Posts and messages online implied that he was involved in Ryan's disappearance, and some also claimed that he was also involved in other missing persons cases. If you know that, let me know below. And even that he had lied to police. He commented, quote, "I've definitely had some death threats to turn me into the police, even people saying that they have a video of me doing something. Of course, it's very hurtful. I think the family that have to read people's judgments on Facebook have it the worst. His 2 younger sisters are the nicest girls and they are a loving family. They should not have to read stuff like that." Now, responding to these claims, Feeney said he spent as long as he could searching. He took 3 days off of work to search immediately after, but couldn't afford to take any longer off. Heather defended Chris, saying, "Do I know for sure that none of them," meaning Ryan's friends up there, "know what happened to Ryan? No. But Ryan really looked up to Chris Feeney. If he and Kirsten, Chris's girlfriend, didn't go out, he would stay in." Heather said, "I've always believed Chris and Kirsten were true friends." And Chris Feeney still struggles not knowing what happened to his friend. He said, "I have absolutely no idea what happened to him. All I know is that I don't believe he would have gone anywhere with people he didn't know. I don't believe he would have wandered off into the woods or was drunk enough to wander off without knowing where he was. And I know for a fact he was young, fit, and experienced in cold weather." A post on the Unsolved Mysteries Reddit page asked Redditors who lived in the Sun Peaks area for their theories about the disappearance. One resident in Kamloops believes it was a hit and run and that Ryan's body was dumped somewhere. Another former resident believes he is no longer in the vicinity but had no further theories. Another simply stated that they believe he fell down a tree well. What is your general theory of what happened, or what are some things come to mind? Let me know below. You never know. A question could help the authorities. It's important to remember that yet, these are obviously just theories, and as of yet, there's no evidence backing any of them. Police still firmly believe there's no foul play in the disappearance, but one has to wonder how someone vanishes into thin air like that. And for those of you who didn't catch my live stream a few weeks ago or the YouTube short that I did, I found this little guy who was left at a restaurant, and it is to spread awareness. It is such a cool story how I found him. This is called a Shtukasaurus, and it has to do with Ryan and his disappearance. And many people have been leaving pictures of their Shtukasaurus from all over the world on the dedicated Facebook page set up for Ryan. I will put that below. Each dinosaur comes with a little QR code so that you can scan it and then you can read more on the Facebook page. The little tag reads, 20-year-old Ryan Shtuka disappeared at Sun Peaks Resort in British Columbia, Canada on February 17, 2018. Extensive and ongoing search efforts have been given. No clues to Ryan's location. We would so appreciate if you share Ryan's story and a picture of where you found this dino. And look on this map at the impact this little dinosaur has made and Ryan's story has made. They have traveled all over the world and have it documented on maps with pins. And I'll leave a link for you below on where you can get these little Shtukasauruses. I will be purchasing some as well, and then I'll bring it to various places and leave them. So hopefully one day it will be in the hands of somebody who recalls something about Ryan and that they can lead him to the authorities and bring him home. I know for the family, it is hell for them. Any family with missing members, it's so hard being in limbo, not knowing where their child is or their loved ones. If you have information, I'll put that below with a number. Also, you can contact the RCMP at 1250-828-3000. Alternatively, if you want to stay anonymous, you can just contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. I'll have that below. They also have a Find Ryan Shtuka GoFundMe set up. It's currently at $98,000 and it's still open. I'll leave that link below if you would like to donate. Heather also has written a book about the disappearance of her son titled Missing From Me, and she's an incredible writer. Her dedicated website also sells merchandise to help raise awareness of this case. That link will be below. The question is, why was there no scent trail for Ryan? Is that timeline incorrect? And did the guys who yelled, "Get in the effing car," have anything to do with Ryan? And what time was that at? I do wonder what the roommates' thoughts are and were, and what their speculations are. What do they think happened to Ryan? What happened earlier in the night? Was there something that maybe Ryan said or did that could be just a tiny little clue? Not that Ryan did anything, but a clue maybe as to anything that might help the RCMP. You just never know. Now click here to see the Marshall Awasa case. The man who disappeared at a storage unit in Alberta and his vehicle turned up in another province a dozen hours away and no camera footage at all from point A to point B. Check out this case here, which is another Canadian man in need of justice. His case has been ignored and there's all kinds of shady happenings going on there.